Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. One more week of talking about Victory, tabletop role-playing game by myself and my writing partner, Victor Gibson. We've talked about the basic mechanics. We've talked about character creation. We've talked about special abilities for player characters and equipment in special. And we've talked a bit about the combat system, or at least the basics of it. Let's talk about a couple of mechanics from the combat system that could use a little bit more explanation, and talk a little bit about how I game master, and some tips for game mastering Victory yourself. Two things I want to cover, and they might be a little bit dry, and they cover kind of complex systems, the most complex stuff in the game. So nothing really bad, just important to keep note of. Armor. Armor is a layer of material between your character and attacks. You're wearing something that is designed to take damage so that you don't. Armor degrades. It has its own damage resistance and shrugs. Also has a stat called an armor shrug. We'll get to that. When you are wearing armor and you are hit by an attack, unless a called shot is made, you're assuming center mass. The armor gets to roll against the damage that the attack is doing first. And it's going to either bounce the damage with a good damage resistance roll, or it's going to lose some shrugs. It's going to lose some shrugs the same way that a character would. And when it's out of shrugs, it is no longer good armor. Attacks can go straight through. But it also has armor shrugs. Most armor does. Some of it's just there to get damaged and degrade until it's not good anymore. Still save your life a couple of times. Armor shrugs means part of it has been hardened. So when you calculate how many shrugs that armor is taking, you subtract the armor shrugs from that number. Oh man, I've hit that armor and dropped it to 0, and it's over by 5 once. So I'm doing 3 shrugs of damage to that armor. It's got 2 armor shrugs. I'm doing 1 shrug of damage to that armor. Armor shrugs don't degrade. It's always going to take that 2 off as long as the armor functions. While it is still there, while it still has shrugs left, those armor shrugs are subtracting from the damage that it is taking. If you're doing more shrugs to the armor than the armor has, well, it's got 3 shrugs, but I managed to get 5 shrugs of damage in on it. Well, it's taken the 3 shrugs, those last 2 shrugs. Now the character inside the armor rolls against the damage. But they can only take maximum 2 shrugs, the 2 shrugs that got through. The armor's probably destroyed, but it has greatly reduced the amount of damage the character would have taken, and now the armor's not there anymore, but your character still has options to move, get out of the way, or somehow do something else to preserve their life. The next attack might get through, but you survived that one. Weapons have an armor-piercing value. Many of them do. Not all. Sometimes it's 0. But if a weapon has an armor-piercing value, that is how many armor shrugs that weapon ignores. Much better at penetrating that hard armor, like a dirk or a stiletto, just designed to punch through and do damage purely to the person inside. Still has to defeat that damage resistance and shrugs of the armor itself, but you're probably getting through. That's armor. Armor comes in many varieties. And if you're not the kind of folks who wears armor, but you still want to get that kind of protection, you can get special abilities, like martial arts abilities and powers in particular, but there's a little something spread through all of them that gives the character their own damage resistance bonuses and armor shrugs, perhaps, to help them bounce more damage off their bare heroic chest. Until there's more damage than they can take, and well, then we're rolling dice. So that's armor. Auto fire. Auto fire is a rule that I'm quite proud of, the auto fire rule, because it takes your standard attack from a bullet, or you can get auto fire numbers from martial arts abilities. You can get auto fire for your hand-to-hand attacks, or for using your bow. You can launch a dozen arrows at once. Your auto fire number, if you have like a submachine gun or machine gun, 2 varieties: auto fire only or auto fire variable. Auto fire only, I've got a dedicated machine gun on a pintle mount. It has an auto fire only. It's got an auto fire 10. When I pull that trigger, 10 bullets are coming out. It's doing a burst of 10 no matter what. That is the minimum it's doing, and the maximum. It is just, that's the number. Auto fire variable, I've got a submachine gun. It has a selector on the side. I can fire single shots. I can do a 3-round burst or a 5-round burst, or if it's designed that way, up to 10, up to the maximum auto fire number of the weapon. A really good weapon with a high rate of fire, auto fire 10, because it's not really worth calculating it past that. Auto fire 10 is about the best you're going to get. What can you do with auto fire? How does that work? Well, let's take an example. I've got a target down range. I've got a submachine gun. I got a good old MP5, auto fire 5, variable. I have a choice to make when I pull the trigger. One is variable. How many am I going? I'm going auto fire 5 because I really don't like that thing down range. Going auto fire 5, 3 choices. 1. I'm going to hold my weapon down on them so that when I hit them, I'm going to hit them a number of times. So they're going to have to make multiple damage resistance rolls. I track the margin of success of my attack. Say I have a 14 to fire, I roll a 10. I'm firing auto fire 5. My margin of success is a 4. I hit them 4 times, up to the maximum number of the auto fire number. I could have hit up to 5 times if my margin had been that high. My margin was 4. I hit them 4 times. They need to make 4 separate damage resistance rolls against each round coming in. So I might do pretty good damage to them, because if I hit them with the attack at all, I'm hitting them 4 times. They could dodge, they can get out of the way. If they've got the right special abilities, maybe they could parry it. That's rough, because that's an expensive bunch of special abilities to parry auto fire attacks. But if they don't get the defense off 4 times, they got to roll 4 times against the incoming damage. Or, rather than number of shots, I can go area. I'm going to spray the area that they are in, which is going to make it more difficult for them to get out of the way, because there's not a line of fire, it's an area of fire. I've turned this into area effect attack. They need to get out of the way. So how does that work? I make it by 4. My margin is a 4, which normal attack, before factory and auto fire, they have a -2 to their defense, half my margin. But because I have filled the area with gunfire, they are an additional -4, 1 for every margin of success, up to the auto fire number. If I'd have made it by 5, they'd have a -5, but it's made it by 4, so they're an additional -4. They got a -6 to get out of the way. That is a rough roll to make. So I have made it more difficult. They're going to get hit once if they fail that defense roll and have to make 1 damage, but that defense roll is much harder to make. If you've got someone who's real dodgy, or they're getting out of the way of stuff, and then maybe you want to hit the area. Or, I'm going to burn 5 risk when I pull this trigger, and I'm going to hit them in an area a number of times. So not only do I give them the additional -4 in our example where my margin was 4 for a -6, but if they fail that roll, they're taking that damage 4 times. They got to roll 4 different damage resistance rolls to get to not take that damage. a 4-foot radius area, because that's going to what we call it. That's the radius of the attack when you make it by that. The radius of 4 feet. It's an 8-foot circle. You're going to have multiple people in that 8-foot circle. And if I burn 5 risk to spray the area and concentrate fire at the same time, I'm going to hit those 4 people in that area 4 times each. I'm going to basically hit with 16 bullets, having fired 5. Does that make sense? No, but when you burn risk, you kind of bend reality. You alter the probabilities. And you have seen this happen in an 80s action film, where the bad guy just sprays an area and everyone there just gets squibs and blood all over the place and drops over. It is highly cinematic and doesn't really conform to reality or make much sense. And well, there we go. That's fine. We are in 80s high action. It is cinematic, and the Uzi is the king of weapons. Some attacks just have a radius. Like a fireball spell or a grenade has a radius, say a radius 5. That means that if I hit with that attack, I drop the grenade right next to you, then not only is there half margin, but the radius of the attack is subtracted from your dodge roll as well. You usually can't parry those without certain special abilities. And that radius is subtracted as well. So I throw a grenade with a radius 5, so it's going to hit an area, and I drop that right next to you. I make the roll by 4. That's a -7. -2 for my margin, an additional -5 for the radius. Everything in that area just has that penalty and is going to take the damage from the grenade. And the reason that I mention these mechanics at the top of talking about game mastering is because stats for bad guys, you can sit down and create bad guys. I often do. In fact, there are books full of opposition and other characters and NPCs on Drive-Thru RPG specifically for that. You've got a bunch of bad guys. You're going to have some bad guys and roll some fights. And your average bad guy, it's a thug. It's a thug. And that thug might not be dangerous. Your characters are action movie heroes. So I can throw 5 thugs, and well, 5 thugs is not scary. 5 thugs is a warm-up. If I haven't made them particularly skilled or particularly tough, if they're those guys in the bar at the beginning of the movie, if they're that random street encounter of gang members who have decided that they take offense to the face of your bad guys, if you're the hired help for the bad guy, the goons that have been hired on at a couple of coppers a week to harass the heroes, they're going to be real crunchy. They're going to go really fast. That fight's going to be over, and no one's going to feel much damage from that. But now you give them some auto-fire weapons. Now they are more dangerous because if they hit with those weapons, they're more likely to hit if they use area, or they are going to hit more often if they find an opportunity to pin you down and concentrate their fire, and that's going to cause damage to happen a little bit more. You give those bad guys some armor, a bulletproof vest, or maybe they got some leather going for them to absorb a few shots. They're going to last longer and give the heroes a little bit more, because every time you have a chance for the bad guys to roll an attack, they're got a chance to hit. It might not be a great chance to hit, but anyone can roll a 1. And even if that lowly thug, if that one-armed, one-eyed pirate that has been trying to harass the party unsuccessfully for half the campaign, and they just keep him alive out of pity time and time again, he shows up with that broken bottle and gets in that one shot if he rolls that 1, there's pain, because 1, you're probably not getting out of the way of that. It takes a 1. You have to roll a 1 to avoid getting hit by a 1. And then he's doing twice as many shrugs. If that damage is coming in at all, it's going to be twice as many shrugs. It's going to hurt. Anyone can roll a 1. If you've got 20 bad guys on the field, chances are It's not guaranteed, but chances are one of them's going to hit that one. And if they're firing an auto-fire weapon when they do it, things are bad. Things are just bad. Harder to get out of the way of, and those hits are going to hit way harder. And yeah, it's only a couple of steps to make a bad guy a really bad guy, to make the opposition rough. Let's talk about making bad guys. So I do have books full of NPCs out there, and making them up, I enjoy making characters in Victory. I like having the options. I like rolling stuff up, seeing what happens. And maybe they're a little more capable than I thought. Maybe they're not. And give them a few flaws. Give them some flaws, give them some merit. Maybe not the full complement, but you know what makes them interesting, what makes them work, and a little equipment. Take some time, flesh them out, and just have a stack of them. These are people that you might meet. These are people who you're going to be fighting with. This is the person you need to help. And well, they've all got stats. They can all take actions when they need to, and it kind of flows. If you ain't got time for that, if you were doing a pickup game or a con game and you haven't really prepared and you haven't had time, I really want to sit down and make a bunch of characters. 3 numbers. One is a general measurement of their competence, an assumed stat plus skill number that you're just going to use for all their roles. If they are not terribly competent, if they're kind of baseline, they might have a total of 7 or 8. Not great, but they can succeed at things every so often. If they really focus down and concentrate on something, and take a little extra time, they can get a +3. Make that a 50-50 chance. And then, they're investigating. Give them that roll on an 8. They're firing at you. Give them a roll on the 8. They need to dodge. Give them that roll on the 8 minus the penalties. If they're not that great of a thing, maybe they got damage resistance to 10. Damage resistance to 10, that's respectable for the average person on the street. Give them 3 shrugs. If you give them shrugs at all, your unnamed mooks and the NPCs that are just there to provide numbers to the bad guy, you can take them out with a single failed roll. They fail 1 damage resistance roll if they're down. Unco or dead, depending on what the heroes really feel like doing, because they're mooks. They don't count. They didn't even have a name when they showed up. But they got a name that is 3 shrugs for your minimum ones. And doing 3 shrugs to a bad guy is not that hard. And doing 4 shrugs to knock them out, not that hard. If they're competent, give them a 10 or 12 as their base roll for doing everything. 10's not bad. 12's pretty good. 12 is actually pretty good. And give them a damage resistance of 14 to 16. Way more effective, actually. And 4 shrugs. That's starting to get in the world of stuff you got to worry about. They're super competent. If they're a heroic level bad guy, or they're a main villain, they've got a 16 or a 17, maybe an 18, because they've gotten some bonuses somehow. 17 kind of maxes out. They might have a 20 damage resistance. Or even higher, if they've got some special abilities. We'll get to that. And 5 shrugs. Hard to put down. Really competent, going to hit more often than not, going to dodge more often than not, and can sit there and take the damage for a little while. A person with a stamina of 10 has 20 damage resistance stepping out of the shower. You can shoot them with your Desert Eagle 50 caliber, which is doing a damage of 20, and they're probably taking a shrug from that. But they're probably taking a shrug from that. They're probably taking one of their 5 shrugs and just looking at you. They can shrug that off a few more times and you're in trouble. Okay, they're taking 2 and missed and hit 0. Still, taking 2 shrugs out of your 5, getting shot by a 50 cal out of the shower. That's someone you need to fear. And if you need those bad guys to be a little bit rougher, give them a modifier weapon. Give them some armor. Give them some special abilities. Maybe they're cyborg thugs, and they've got more some armor built on. So they got higher DRs, or built-in weapons, or some claws. Maybe they got a submachine gun built into the arm that is going to make life difficult for our heroes, and they want to concentrate fire, or pin people down, or suppress an area. You have a lot of choices to make when you're putting these folks together, and put on a good show. That is if I can put one piece of advice out there, I can put a number of them, but if I could only put one piece of advice out there for people running Victory, don't hold back. Victory is weighted towards player characters winning, and they're probably going to. Chances are, but that doesn't mean you need to make it easy for them, and shouldn't. There are plenty of options, plenty of ways for them to work their way out of trouble, lots of things for them to do, especially if they just still have risk to spend. And that's the way it's designed. So you can drop 20 bad guys on them, and they should be able to work that out. You can have the plane that they're in crashing. They should be able to figure something out. They've got options. Is that a dragon? Because the dragon's got a lot higher numbers than everything they've got and all these abilities. How are they going to deal with that dragon? Well, it's not an easy fight. But it's a fight. A dragon isn't a death sentence. Not for your average commoner, yes, the dragon is a death sentence. For player characters, especially got 2 or 3 of them together, they got a shot. They got a shot. So, if you're going to go in full prep, have some stacks of characters ready. Enjoy the character making process. If you're not, have some numbers ready, just like 2 or 3 numbers, maybe a couple of extra notes. These guys have auto fire weapons. These guys are attacking with explosives that have a radius. These guys have special armor because they've got the bad guy's favor. And keep trying. Your players are going to ask you for names. Have a name generator handy, even if it's a baby book from the checkout stand at the supermarket. A baby name book is a super useful aid, or a random name generator. Plenty of them available online. You know what's oh man, this guy's not running away. It looks like we beat him up pretty bad. Isn't this that guy that we used to help with his homework? Oh man, I feel really bad about this. What's his name? Come up with a name. Write the name down someplace. Because if they take that kind of note in an NPC, they'll be back. They'll be asking for him or trying to take care of him, and it's going to be the most important thing in their lives. And yeah, just write the note, write the name. Maybe keep a track of his stats a little bit, 2 or 3 numbers, so that you have some idea what he can do. Bump him up every so often as the player characters help him out. And maybe have him show up at the last fight, well armed and ready to go, now a hero in his own right. Or having turned tail and is now helping the villain even more, and has become a villain in their own right. I'm not going to tell you what story to tell. Just tell a story. If you play so that at the end of it, everyone's got a story to tell, y'all win. That is the true victory, is when everyone has a story to tell that you're going to be telling for years down the line. It's about making stories. It's about making a greater story than any one person at the table could make, because you're all making it together. And that's kind of the most important thing. If a player asks about the distance to target, it's kind of designed to be theater of the mind. So you give them a distance either right inside their range if you want this to be easy for them, or right outside their range if you want it to be harder for them. So they've got to move or maneuver to get in range. Or if you want to go all tactical with it, you get a copy of Alternate Victory 1 that has the tactical rules in it, and now you're moving on hex grids and lining up your sight, and you can play it either way, your choice. aside from that, have fun. Now, this is fun for everyone at the table. And if running and victory starts to be a chore, there's adventures in the basic book, an adventure for each of the eras and some basic NPCs and some example PCs. And I've been leaving posts at the bottom of in the description of these videos, 2 collections of player characters for every era that you can get for free from our drive-through RPG, and have some of those handy and have fun. I enjoy victory a lot, and I hope to run more of it. I'm going to take it to some conventions, hopefully this year, if not this year, next. But I need to get it out there, and I need to get the fantasy book done because I want something a little bit more substantial for a fantasy setting. It's been about time, and this is a good time for me to do that, I think. That being said, thank you very much for following along through these videos. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. Anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, I'll come back to victory at some point in time. As I'm working on the fantasy book and as I'm doing other things and coming up with stuff, if I put up a product, I'll talk about it here. But anything else you'd like to hear me cover, other questions you'd like to hear me answer, subjects you'd like me to talk about, please leave me a comment down below. I will love getting your comment. You'll love leaving me one. If you would like to, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Please hit the subscribe button. If you do, you might also want to hit the notification bell so you're alerted when my videos become available. If you would like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up at my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. Consider donating. Absolutely anything helps. Allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.